So at the time that you began or matriculated into Pemba, were you still in private practice, or had you gone back into another healthcare organizational role?
No, I was still in private practice. And as a private practitioner, one of the things that you quickly realize is because you don't um, control or own the hospital, which is a separate business entity, you are in constant flux with a relationship which moves from the symbiotic to the antagonistic very quickly with hospital administration. The hospital administrators have their own priorities, they have their own metrics, and they have their own people. And if you are not facile on your feet, you can get gobbled up very quickly. And I think that's an important point of view to have. I moved back to the academic world in 2016, 10 years later, actually.
Mm.
And I did so because, frankly, there comes a point in private practice where I got bored, essentially. I just, intellectually, I got bored. And I got to a point where I was looking at the end game of my career. And I said, okay, well, let me finish doing what I like to do, which is educate and do research and then practice at a high end. And then I started shedding a lot of my titles, so to speak, administrative titles, which I don't really want or need more titles. I've had enough of those. Um, but the curiosity and the passion for excellence in care and quality remain there. And I think that this is where Pemba gave me an edge in terms of allowing me to focus on that. And you'll see some of the things that we've been doing and the reasons why we're doing them.
So you entered into Pemba when you were in private practice, and it sounds like you were really looking for business knowledge to help you run a business. Tell me how that learning and knowledge translated over when you went back into an academic position.
Oh, it was priceless, absolutely priceless. The moment you go back with your Pemba knowledge and you sit up in a meeting with the hospital administration, if you're a private practitioner and you open your mouth and ask certain questions, they look at each other like, uh-oh, we cannot put a veil over these guys' eyes anymore. And they have to be on their toes, to be quite honest with you, even in the university on a daily basis. And I think that when we were planning this, we had a conversation. Uh, a lot of the people, for example, not too long ago, I got a communication from our so-called supply chain about trying to change the coils that we use for aneurysms, and they sent this spreadsheet that was essentially incorrect, and both in scope as well as focus. So I sent it back via email with my corrections and said, by the way, your spreadsheet was incorrect and you're not looking at this correctly because you want us to use the cheaper coils and you're counting cost per coil. But if the better coils, which are more expensive, end up per case using less number of coils, you got to look at the cost per case, not the cost per coil. And within a couple of emails, they stopped sending any more emails. They stopped asking. So,
Interesting.
knowledge is power, and the
Mm-hmm.
ability to ask the right questions and negotiate from a position of intellectual strength, and having the data to prove it, I think it's important. When I was in private practice, for example, one of the things that happened to us is that I got this dashboard one time about the quality of care. These patients you're admitting with stroke are your length of stay is too long. It's longer than the average in the nation. So I took the data, rearranged the analysis, and said, look carefully at my analysis. Look how the patients who are admitted on Friday in my service have a longer length of stay statistically than the ones that are admitted on Monday, which means that the testing that we need to do for them is not being done on the weekends. So until you start running a 7-day hospital, I don't want to hear from you, because you can't blame me for a length of stay because you don't provide the services that we need on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
That ended that conversation also. So it's about really looking at information from the perspective of the person who is taking fire with boots on the ground, as opposed to somebody sitting in an office in front of spreadsheets without knowledge of what is required to take care of these patients.
Right. Well, those are great stories, and I appreciate you sharing those with us. I wonder if you could share one last thought with us before we move on to your presentation. What is your favorite memory of Pemba? And just for people in the audience who might not be aware, at Pemba we have 4 RPs, residence periods, where we come onto campus, and every Saturday we would do virtual learning when we weren't on campus. But maybe share a little bit about your favorite memory. It sounds like you had opportunities because you knew someone to maybe your behavior wasn't always as professional as it might be when you were in the hospital.
Well, we were professional mischievous, but that's for sure. We didn't get paid for our mischiefs, but we could have actually collected. But it was, again, that was fun because having somebody that you've known and be friends with for a number of years helps. And I would encourage anyone who's considering joining Pemba, if you have a friend or a colleague that you know and you get along well, bring them along. I mean, it makes a phenomenal difference. But as far as what I enjoyed about Pemba, I'm telling you, the list is long and distinguished. I particularly enjoyed not that I'm terribly competitive, I'm not going to admit to all of that, but we enjoyed the Masters of the Universe competition. I mean, immensely. This buddy of mine, my neurosurgery friend, happens to have a PhD in mathematics. So we actually, reverse engineer the formulas and ended up winning. It's just we had everybody down because we knew exactly what everybody was doing, and we enjoyed it immensely. That was one of the most fun we've had in a long time, building a company that made computers and market computers. Mm-hmm. But there were many things. The speakers, the teachers are first class. I couldn't begin to name them because I'm going to leave somebody out, but they're amazing people. They treat you very nicely. They have your best interests at heart, and you get to a point where you're looking forward to the next residency period. So it was really a great experience all around. I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts and memories. I